You'll know if you should buy Afterblast in the next 98 seconds. Here's your TLDR. Afterblast is the aftermath of a wild night between Doom Eternal, Risk of Rain 2, and Returnal, where they're left trying to figure out how to split up weekends and child support. It is fast, unapologetically colorful, and demands a level of mechanical precision that puts most AAA shooters to shame. The game splits itself into two distinct modes, a stage-based climb, the Returnal side, and an infinite survival mode, the Risk of Rain 2 side. This duality ensures that the game appeals to both the completionist who wants a definitive boss kill, and the dopamine addict who wants to see the engine buckle under the weight of a god-tier proc build. It is absolutely worth your time if you are a technical shooter enthusiast who values frame time consistency and pristine input fidelity that rewards skill expression in the best way. However, it is an early access title in the truest sense. On my machine, it hits the 327 FPS reflex cap at 1440p with ease, but it does still suffer from the Unreal Engine 5 tax. Most specifically, shader caching hitches that disrupt the flow during your initial runs and the first time you fight new bosses, which is kind of a problem. It is absolutely not for you if you hate vibrant colors in your games, dislike RNG, or are on a machine approaching adolescence. And as of March 2026, the two-person team at Lumino Games has been on a warpath of patches. They've addressed game-breaking scaling bugs, added necessary accessibility features like controller rebinding, and they seem to show no signs of slowing down anytime soon. The proc meta is currently overtuned, favoring high fire rate weapons over technical skill, but the foundation here is pure gold. This isn't just another indie shooter, it's a technical and stylistic benchmark for the genre. Now, I've played far too many roguelite and FPS games to count at this point. If they can keep this up, this will be one of the greats. Now, if all you wanted was that TLDR, I get it. Thanks for sticking around. Before you go, though, do us a favor and hit the YouTube buttons and comment your favorite dumpling. Mine's Pilmeni. It lets the robots on the back end know that this was a useful video and push it to more people. And if you want a more detailed breakdown, stick around. Oh, and if you're new here, hi, I'm Squid. I cover action and shooter titles with the occasional essay or peripheral review. And the rule here is maximum meaningful info with minimum reaction faces. So let's kick things off with the core gameplay loop. Afterblast really nails the elevator pitch. It is a curated mashup of the last several decades of FPS design, all strapped into a tough but fair roguelite or infinite survival mode for single-player or up to four-person co-op that does actually work pretty flawlessly in my experience. You'll clear floors leading to bosses while collecting RNG-flavored power-ups each run, or work your way towards stupidly overpowered builds that will make your CPU and GPU question your sanity in the survival mode. That's it. It doesn't need to be anything else. It's good. And for me, one of the most striking design choices here is the way they worked with weapons. Lumino has bypassed that generic military arsenal or fantasy future weapons vibe by creating kits that will feel instantly familiar without being derivative. The Uzi isn't just a submachine gun, it's Tracer. It rewards that dash and shred rhythm that you know so well, and the assault rifle is pure Soldier 76 or Quake. It's predictable, reliable, and it rewards consistent tracking at mid-range. And by coding weapons as familiar archetypes, the game leverages your existing muscle memory. You aren't learning a new game. You're applying decades of genre knowledge to a roguelite structure. Brilliant, without becoming overly referential or saccharine. And moving on to art, audio, and vibes. Visually, the game leans into a neon Norse kind of vibe. It swaps the gritty realism crutch a lot of titles will go for in favor of high saturation bioluminescence and glowing runes. And this is more than an art style. I think it's a purposeful design choice, because in a bullet hell, visual noise is quite literally your enemy. And Afterblast uses color to create high contrast silhouettes and projectile clarity that helps you to see the gaps in the code even when the game's at its most hectic. The soundtrack is on point, thumps and paints dramatic backdrops without becoming obtrusive. Here, give it a listen. Now, the weapon sounds are sufficient. They might do with some further tweaking for my personal taste, but that's a nitpick, if I'm honest, and I'm not going to be cranky if they stay the way they are. Overall, it feels like an arcade cabinet from the future, thankfully not a relic from the era of chest-high walls and piss filters. So let's talk technicals and settings. My analysis here is based on a system running a 9800X3D and a 5090. The full specs are in the description. Now for me, Afterblast is a reflex-capped 327 FPS experience at 1440p. Frame time consistency is, for the most part, a flat line. On this hardware, the end-to-end system latency is essentially negligible. Now, UE5 is notorious for inherent mouse acceleration. Thankfully, I don't feel that here. When you miss, it's most likely your fault, not the game's. However, there is a recurring blemish: shader compilation stutters. At the time of this recording, Lumino has not yet implemented a robust pre-compilation step, so what that means is you'll enter a new biome or encounter a new particle effect, which again is problematic the first time you encounter a boss. You will see sharp spikes on the frame time graph and feel the chug. And in bullet hell, a 60 millisecond hitch can be a death sentence. Like, as consumers, we really have to stop accepting play to compile as a standard. While these hitches vanish after the first few runs, it's a blemish on an otherwise stellar technical profile, and it makes those first attempts on new bosses much more stressful than they need to be. Now, your CPU will likely determine how you feel about the survival mode. As you reach the late game god runs, the sheer volume of procs going on can flatline some older hardware. Thankfully, earlier this month, the March 16th patch fixed the critical scaling bug where damage calculations were hitting the billions and causing the engine to basically wave a white flag and surrender. Now, even with that bug squashed, the overhead for tracking hundreds of simultaneous procs is immense. Now, on my 9800X3D, the frame times remained fine, but I hear that folks on mid-range hardware are reporting some pretty significant 1% load dips during the heavy particle effect bursts. Now, on one hand, that makes the game harder when it's already at its hardest, which is lame. On the other, it's nice to have a game that respects your hardware by actually using it. Now, in terms of settings, the game passes my checklist with high marks. We have a proper FOV slider, all your usual suspects, and, as of the March 21st patch, full controller rebinding. For an indie team to prioritize these features so early in early access, it really shows a level of professional respect for the player that AAA studios often lack. Usually this section of the video is longer. I have zero complaints here. Well done. Keep it up. As for possible friction points, as an early access title, you can absolutely expect some broken balancing, bugs, and ongoing rebalancing. And at the time of this recording, procs are kind of king, mostly because the game hasn't yet implemented proc coefficients, which is where you normalize the chance on hit effects based on the weapon's fire rate. This makes high-speed weapons like the Uzi mathematically superior to everything else if you're the type who needs to meta-chase or you start to itch. So right now, a good portion of the item pool is kind of dead weight for anybody chasing a high-end clear. So for an overall verdict and value, let's wrap this up. Who is this for? The technical purist. If you own a 5090 or 4090 and a 360 plus hertz monitor, congratulations, this is your new benchmark. The responsiveness is addictive. It makes my Pulsar monitor absolutely sing. It's also for the Risk of Rain 2 addict. And if you want that one more run loop, but with the mechanical depth of a proper FPS, you'll be at home here. And finally, for the accessibility conscious, the March 28th update added an easy mode, which lowered the barrier for entry without sacrificing the core loop. I'd say it's a hard skip if you hate vibrant colors, you can't stand RNG-based difficulty, or you're running a CPU from 5 to 10 years ago. In that last case, survival mode will likely turn your experience into a bit of a slideshow. All in all, Afterblast is a rare example of an early access title that has its technical soul figured out, even if its mathematical body is still growing. It knows its aboutness and is leaning in. Overall, this is a strong green light. The core combat loop is simply too tight to ignore, and the developer's response time throughout March 2026 has been exemplary. They aren't just adding content, they are fixing the foundation. The game is currently retailing for $14.99 US on Steam or your regional equivalent, and based on my burrito index, and that's where I contrast the price of a game with an equivalent number of Al Pastor burritos from the mom and pop shop down the street from me, we're at 1.2 burritos. Now, I love all forms of our porcine friends, especially when roasted, but that's a strong dopamine to dollar ratio. Now, for that price, you're getting a high fidelity, high skill ceiling shooter that respects your hardware and your time. It's a meal that keeps on giving, provided you have the CPU to digest the procs. The bottom line here is, if they can fix the coefficients, cache the shaders, and keep the neon coming, Afterblast is going to be the real deal if they can keep it up. Now, if you made it this far, the robots at YouTube think you'll also like the video popping up on screen now. I've been BaldSquid. I'll see you next time.